What's up, everybody? I'm Stan, and welcome to Detail Comics, where we go over comics in detail. This is iRate Reviews, the show where I go over a comic book, its art, its story, give you my impressions, and let you know whether it's something you should read or not. What I'm going to do is I'm going to be talking about Batman number 12. So Batman number 12 is a very interesting story because it touches on a lot of things that don't really show up in comic books itself, and it puts it in the context of the Dark Knight himself. So if you remember where we last left off in Batman number 11 showed us the betrayal of Selina Kyle, and it really had people up in arms based on the writing of Selina and Catwoman. And this, I feel, is going to have a very similar impact. It's possible that some people are going to be a little bit more accepting because it fits a little bit more with Batman's character, but you never really know until you go through it. So, let's start off with the story. Like Batman number 10, this is going to be a tale that goes over what's going on basically around Santa Prisca, but telling a different story over the top of it. Instead of Selina writing a letter to Bruce, it's Bruce writing a letter to Selina, and they even refer to each other with their pet names of Cat and Bat. And what this really does is it shows a different parallel, because Batman, he's writing his story, to be perfectly honest with you, we should start with the art, because every single page of this is just a double page spread broken up into different panels or no panels at all that shows Batman's adventure through Santa Prisca, and it's just stunning. But the story that's overlaid is a little bit more dour, it's a little bit more damp, it's a little bit darker than what you'd really expect to be over this kind of heroic battle through the prison towards the ultimate culmination of fight with Bane. So this story is really Bruce not necessarily being eloquent, not throwing a lot of flourish at things, not being very wordy, but ultimately very intimate and intense when it comes to his actual story that he's telling. He's telling a story of a young boy, and a difference that comes between him and Selina. How she was raised and how he, in this situation, is just like, yeah, if he goes to see her now, they'll do nothing but fight because he doesn't understand why she did what she did. Because he only understands his perspective of what he comes from. Because they get each other. They get each other on a very base level because they both have things in common. They both have very tragic pasts, and the reason that his past is tragic is very different than where hers is. But it's still something that they both understand each other, and they can both recognize those things. And where it gets a little bit deeper and it gets a little bit darker is really Batman, Bruce Wayne's portrayal of what happened to him as a young boy. Because what he did at that point in time was he reached a level of darkness and despair that he really couldn't get past. And that was, it was a very cold part of the actual book itself, where he described, running his dad's razor blade across his wrist and feeling the warmth in between his hands as those things kind of came. He knew that he was dead, that they were coming to claim him, and that he was praying and no one was answering. So that's when he made his vow. He made his vow that, he is going to become Batman. He's going to become vengeance against criminals, against crime. He's going to wage this fight for the rest of his life, which isn't necessarily the mark of a very sane person. And then judging from everything that's gone on in Batman so far, it makes so much sense in that terms, in the context of the actual story itself. As we kind of move along here, we get to see that Batman is a very broken individual. And that's how Tom King has described him in a few different articles and a few different interviews that he's done. Batman is a broken individual, and this is how he sees him. And this is just touching on a little bit more depth as to why that is. And if you look at the actions of Batman throughout this, he just throws himself into these certain death type of moments. Even in issue number 1, we get the strong portrayal of Batman being able to forfeit his life because he feels as though he's already dead. Because Batman is meant to live in these situations. He's meant to be this kind of death-defying crime fighter, because that was his vow. Until he stops living, he's going to fight crime, and he's going to wage his war on these criminals. So, when he jumped on a plane and he was just ready to ride it into the bay, not being able to survive, he was accepting those things. When he jumped into Santa Prisca, he was doing that with that same kind of mindset. So it puts his sanity into question. But you had to be insane to be Batman anyway. And he would remark how his parents would laugh. They would laugh at these situations because, it was absurd. A man dressing up as a giant bat, hanging off gargoyles and fighting crime. What's he going to do to crime? He's going to punch crime in the face. He says it himself. He makes fun of his own premise of being the darkness, being the night, and that Selina is one of the true people that can understand that perspective. So we kind of wrap everything up with Batman, Bruce Wayne, relaying to Selina Kyle that, yes, the moments where, they kiss, time does stop, and they change them fundamentally because they're both not dead inside, that they know that they're not going to die alone. And that was just like, it's such a tragic romance feel that Tom King is painting of this couple that you just can't help but like it, but there's so many things that could go wrong. There's so many things that people could take the wrong way, which makes it a very kind of, I don't necessarily know if it's going to be controversial, but it's one of those things that people might not necessarily accept about Batman. And this is where people might be jumping off. It might not necessarily be something that they want in their Batman. They might not necessarily be ready to read something like this. But one thing's for sure, that the I Am Suicide arc brings a whole new meaning with this story, and that was the plan all from the beginning. And that's what makes it really, it makes it exciting, because you take a look at this and it's just like, all right, there's very distinct ideas, very distinct plot points, and very strong statements that come in this overall story. And it's just enhanced by the overall artistic appeal of Mikel Janin. But these very strong principles are really the backbone, the core of how Tom King is going to be writing Batman. And in another article, he said that he's basically got everything planned out until 2019. There's so much potential to dig into the depth of this character and really kind of change not necessarily his foundation or his core, but really try and understand what it takes to be a man that pursues this kind of vengeance against crime. And that's probably the most interesting thing that I found about Batman. I really enjoyed the issue. I'm not sure what kind of reaction everybody else has, but it's definitely something that you're going to have to go read for yourself and understand, see how it feels to you and whether that's something that you're okay with or not. But I would definitely recommend going and taking a read at it, just because it's one of those things where it's going to evoke a response. And that's one of the great things about art and style and those things. It's meant to create an emotional response, and a lot of people might feel that from this. So definitely recommend that you go grab it, whether you're going to, enjoy it or not. So that's my review of Batman number 12, but I really want to know what you guys think about this too. So hit me up in the comments down below and we can start that conversation. As always, if you like what you see, hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe right there to get more news, reviews, and commentary on comic books, comic book movies, comic book TV shows and games, and anything and everything inside the world of comics.